Welcome to season 2 podcast of Speak Life. In this show, we believe that words can heal, inspire, and empower people just to encourage in everyday life. We talk about everything and anything, but most importantly, we give God all the glory in all these stories that are being said. My name is Gina. This is Eddie Dizon, and we are one of your hosts for this season.
Absolutely. And you know what? We're going to just really quick tell you how kind of we came about Mike and who Mike Lee is, our special guest today, man. Welcome to Speak Live Podcast. It's been so good to chat with you, bro, for years. Yes, and I will say probably a few years ago, we encountered each other, man, became friends so fast. I was so fascinated, bro, with the tattoos. Come on, I wish I had them to make me look a little bit buffer, but I'll skip on that for this time. But hearing your story, bro, and just fast forward now 2.5 years later, here we are.
Absolutely.
Here we are, man, and God is about to get the glory, ain't he?
Absolutely.
And he's done so much in the last 2 years. And so tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, man, where you grew up, and all that good fun stuff.
Yeah. So I was born in Iowa, actually. Excuse me. Born in Iowa. Moved to Texas at a young age, had young mom, young dad. I think my mom was 16 when she got pregnant, 17 when she had me. My dad not much older, so definitely a whirlwind of a childhood.
Yeah.
Had 2 drug-addicted parents who, I guess they did the best they could with what they had, what they knew how.
Yeah.
Long generation of addiction and, young pregnancies all across both sides of the family. So, moved to Texas when I think we were about 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Came down here, lived with my grandparents and my dad. My mom, I guess it probably started off then with my mom left when I was about 6 months old.
Okay.
So my dad, took the reins,
Yeah.
took me, he was living a life in the Midwest that was, obviously not good. So to get out of there, we had some rough times that led us to have to leave, which I thank God now.
I think that's where you guys first connected.
Yeah, we relate on that. Same thing with me. My mom left 6 months old and felt the immediate abandonment, which I believe
100%.
became one of the forefront reasons on why I did the things that I did. And so, as we get more into that, the topic today really comes down to, I was thinking redemption. We talked about that a little bit.
Sure.
But as I drove here today, really thinking about how do we break generational curses? Mm-hmm. Right? How do we go about just praying about it and realizing, man, there's something there that I don't want to continue, but we fall into this hole, right? Of how do we break it in this cycle that is repeated, a nasty cycle, actually.
Sure.
And you fall into a season where you're like, I don't know what else to do. I don't know where else to go. Who do I talk to about this? Who's going to understand? Yep. And so, as you lived your life, man, a lot of stuff has happened. But I want to focus a little bit more on just about 2 years ago.
Sure.
When you and I had a crazy encounter, man. Would you tell us a little bit about what that was about?
Yeah, absolutely. I was on a trajectory of divorce from my wife. Was in a relapse cycle, dead in the middle of it, of addiction. Was 1 foot in church and 1 foot in the street. I was trying to, again, battle that abandonment, right? So here goes the only other woman in my life that I trusted and let in. And here we are having problems, and I don't know what to do. Yeah. Because unfortunately, my spiritual order was out of whack.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Prior to the relapse, it was my wife, then God. So I made her, hey, I feel good when she's good. I'm okay when she's okay. So we hit a rougher patch, and I fell apart. I didn't lean on God. I leaned on how we were doing. Yeah. We had so many issues, unresolved, predominantly my fault. I'll be completely transparent about that.
Yeah.
And man, I abandoned anything I was listening to, that we were being, preached to in church. I had a couple good guys that came in my life and held on to that shirt before I went off the edge. Yeah. It was close, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was close.
It was about as, I would say, maybe if you heard my story, there's some other points that others would think, well, that's way worse.
Yeah.
But for me, this was the beginning of my end of the cycle of those generational curses, because I was dancing on that surrender piece finally, because God was allowing me to lose everything to get me to focus on him.
Yeah.
That's right when we met.
Yeah. At what point in your life, bro, did you feel like the only thing I could really turn to at this point is drugs? I've been through so much trauma, and you could talk a little bit about that trauma. I mean, you told me about a story about, sitting on a couch as an 8-year-old or sleeping on a couch, house getting shot up by different people, and all of a sudden you were in danger.
And, that happened.
Yeah.
That was the big reason we moved here.
Yeah.
Excuse me. That's the big reason we moved here. I was in the living room. Somebody shot up the front of the house. I was standing in front of a couch that was completely obliterated behind me. Which, I haven't told a lot of people that. Kimia knows, my wife. But I think that it took that for my dad to realize, hey, we at least got to get out of here. I'll figure it out when we get somewhere else. So we moved down here. But yeah, that was, I didn't remember that. My mind blocked that out for a lot of years.
Yeah.
My dad wouldn't talk about it. And then, my dad and I were having some really gut level conversation in some of the midst of my lower points. And he's like, we moved down here because I almost lost you.
Yeah.
So some of these near death experiences, I know we've talked about a couple. And
Sure.
There's way more
Right.
why you should not be here. How do you feel like that divine intervention right now, like when you think back about those situations and how you shouldn't even be sitting here right now, like how does that define it differently now that you are doing amazing with the Lord, God has redeemed you?
Come on.
And how even when we talk, it brings tears to your eyes to even think, why am I here? Because I shouldn't be. Like, it literally had to be a divine moment.
Absolutely. I think when I finally started having a real relationship with Jesus, because when you understand him, you start understanding that power piece, right?
Right.
Before it was, hey, God looked out for me in a situation. And then now it's, no, God had a plan. He knew all of it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And he just had to show me his power in spurts. Now, I didn't realize it at multiple points. Hey, I got lucky. Hey, I was, God stepped in, but I really didn't give him the glory from my heart. It was more of a circumstantial glory. Mm-hmm. Hey, thanks for getting me out of that. Now, I think the big difference is I understand why.
Yeah.
I don't understand it all the way like he does, but I understand that, hey, he's had a plan this whole time, to put me right where I am today. This is part of the plan. And he keeps revealing to me those little parts. So, yeah, I think the big difference is, I start to know him. You start to know his heart better.
Yeah.
And it's not about me. It's about him, right?
Yeah.
It's his glory. It's his power.
Yeah.
And then for you to share that with somebody else and tell them, hey, you know what? You may think it's amazing, but it's supernatural.
Yeah.
Like, it defied physics. It defied logic for man's understanding and, explanation.
Yeah.
But he did that just for me.
So you find yourself in this place where, man, your mom leaves you at 6 months old, living with dad, obviously drugs everywhere, alcohol everywhere, partying everywhere. You've experienced all these things as a kid, so much trauma that was involved in that. We talked about so many things, man. I got a million things running through my mind. So I want to focus on this a little bit.
Sure.
Even through your, junior high school years, proving yourself to people. Doing things to get the approval of those around you, right?
Yes, sir.
We can talk about all that. And was there any at all in your childhood? Was there any form of church? Did anybody introduce you to anything? Did you go to a local youth group? What was your first encounter with the Lord, I would say, in that season of your life?
Grew up Catholic.
Okay.
But really no guidance in that.
Yeah.
I don't think much of my family did. I think it was more of this is what we do. This is what you're going to do. We didn't really have the personal relationship with Jesus. It just wasn't a dynamic in my family. It was, you do what you want Monday through Saturday, but Sunday you're going to go to mass, right? It was checking the boxes. There was no actual digging into the word. So I did have an exposure, and I'm grateful I did, because the little bit that I did learn did help me to understand Jesus dying on the cross.
Right.
It did help me to understand that, there was something bigger than me. Relationship piece wasn't there till later in life. And I think you had brought up, some key, like, defining milestones where I feel like the enemy got a foothold. I feel he attacks the youth for a reason. He wants that separation between you and God at a very early age, so it becomes habitual.
Yeah.
It becomes a habit not to be, connected. That trauma be in the way of you and the Savior. So I was 8 years old. I was molested. I was molested by a friend of my mom's. That's a lady that she was close with, and so I believe that was just another brick that the enemy was trying to put between me and Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, at the time, sure, it did in a lot of aspects. I couldn't understand. Later in life, I understand what the tactic was.
Yeah.
He wants me to have that trauma passed down to my seed, which will pass down to the next seed. I think that's where you're talking about the generational curses.
Yeah.
So the drug addiction in the house, multiple women in and out of the house with my dad, and then, the sexual orientation at a very young age. He was just trying to pervert all the great things that God had in store for me later on.
So growing up in an environment like that is definitely, you would say, the reasons why you got into it and your addiction and the different things. What would you say was the most challenging to break all of that? What was the challenging aspects of that?
I think Eddie hit it on the head. It was the abandonment. It was trying to fill a hole that could never be filled by anything else but God. But I had no idea. So I would stuff anything in there. Women. It wasn't just addiction to drugs. It was women. It was acceptance.
Yeah.
The fear of rejection. There were so many facets that all of that brought about. So, I mean, from a very young age, a lot of people, well, there's no father in the home. It's very hard. Well, when you're the kid who doesn't have a mom in the home, it's equally as hard.
Come on.
You miss that nurturing side. You miss that, womanly side that a man can't give, right? That's why the dynamic of two parents in a home is so vital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was an abandonment piece. I always wondered what did I do?
Yeah.
What was wrong with me? Why would she leave?
Yeah. Man, I feel that, bro.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you like, am I talking to myself? Like, what's going on here? I'm tripping.
Right.
And I think I knew that, but I didn't really know that. That makes sense, right?
100%.
Everything you're mentioning, from mom leaving, to being with single dad, and it's just crazy, bro. I didn't realize our stories are so like the same, but I did know that, so I'm tripping right now. Anyway.
Yeah, you feel it. There's some emotion behind that.
Was there ever a time in everything you were going through as a young man where you felt like, oh my goodness, my life is over. This is it. I've given up. My hands are up in the air, and I don't know what else to do. I surrender to whatever the world has for me.
Yes.
Tell us about that moment a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was a regular occurrence for me. Throw my hands up and turn to the next thing to make me feel better.
Yeah.
There's a surrender just to the wrong facets. All right. So I was surrendering to, like you said, anything the world had to offer me. Friendships, parties, partying, substances. It didn't matter. And there were some good things that, took an excessive amount. Sports, boxing, there was a violence factor that crept in there at a very young age. You talked about, being tested in high school. That started when I was young. Hey, what are you? Are you Mexican? Are you white? What are you? No, I'm Italian. Yeah. Oh, okay. Because you look like you could be either way.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of, I didn't have an identity. So whoever I was around was I was a chameleon. I could fit with you, this group, that group, because I learned how to do whatever I needed to do to fit in. Yeah. Right. Whether it was good, whether it was bad, until eventually you can't run. You can't fake it for too long. Right.
Yeah.
You lose yourself. I never knew that. So I've surrendered to anything that just got me to the next second, got me to the next moment.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And then it never fulfilled.
Never. No, it would leave actually a bigger hole.
Yeah.
It would leave a bigger hole over the years.
Yeah. But at some point, you realize there's a time to make a decision to change.
Yes.
And I know how difficult that can be, actually.
Sure.
Myself in 1998, I had this moment with the Lord where I knew what he wanted me to change, but I wasn't willing to give it up quite yet.
Right.
So I fought and I wrestled, with what I come to know now as God. Back then, I thought it was myself. I thought it was my friends. But you had some situations where you even OD'd.
Oh yeah.
What does that look like? What does that feel like? What are you encountering during that moment where you've taken so much drugs that you're literally like senseless?
You're completely powerless at that moment, right? There's no reversing it. So you know that, oops, I've went too far, right? So there's a very, I wouldn't say freeing, but you have no control, right? So it's fear, because when you're doing that, you're wrapped up in the world. So fear is a very real thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the fear starts to set in that, oh, I don't have another do-over. This is it. I was shot in 2003. Same thing. God will get he allows things to happen to try to get your attention.
Yeah.
And what you do with it will dictate kind of how far it goes. I would look at it like a situational thing. I put everything in boxes, compartmentalize it. So like when I was shot, paralyzed from the waist down for a little bit. Hey, it's okay. I'll get better because I didn't die. And then you wear it as a badge of honor and you keep going. So it never got my attention. I would say the first real time it started in 2011 when I met Kimia, when I met my wife. Mm-hmm. She brought another viewpoint. She would call me out like rigorously. Hey, that's not normal. You don't do that. And I couldn't understand that. What do you mean? That's what family does for each other.
Yeah.
If they ask for something, you go put pills on the fridge.
Yeah.
If they need some money, you do what you need to do to get them some money. Like that was very normal for me. And she's like, no, that's not normal. Like you have to find a different way to accomplish those things in like a pro-social manner, right?
Yeah.
But I'll honestly be completely transparent. My full surrender moment didn't come until about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. Yeah, I OD'd.
Yeah,
yep.
I remember.
You came and seen me.
Yeah,
that was a hell on earth moment for me.
Yeah,
it was a hell on earth moment for me. I was completely, probably certifiable crazy to all medical standards. But the things I was experiencing were very supernatural. And there was an array of emotions. So there was regret. Like, why did I do this? Why didn't I just listen? I mean, I thought people were trying to kill me. I thought, the nurses were trying to kill me. I mean, you came up, you were the only voice that I could hear, like rationally. You were able to call me, and I know God put you right in my life in that hospital room for a reason. And that was the beginning of my end of my trajectory towards hell.
Yeah.
I mean, I was living a portion of it on earth.
Yeah.
But it was in that moment when I started kind of grabbing my bearings about me that I was still half kind of paranoid and feeling kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And realizing, oh, wow, I'm alive. And it was somewhere in that middle that I was like, I can't do this. This is absolutely insane. And it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was absolutely insane.
Do you remember a specific moment in rehab where you said, God, I surrender everything?
Absolutely.
Like all the years that I tried to do this and try and fulfill, but like now, like I'm going to truly give everything to you.
I do. Right before we had a class in rehab, I sat on the edge of the bed and I lost everything. 2 businesses. So I thought. I lost 2 businesses, my wife, my, everything tangible. And the only thing I really had was what I thought was me and whatever I could make out of this rehab in this relationship with God. Mm-hmm. And I had let go of my wife, the businesses, the money, anything. It didn't matter. I didn't care about my very own breath anymore. I was like, you know what? You can take me home and I'll be just fine. Like, I don't want to be here. I was that detached from the world. And I got in there, it was my 3rd day there. And he said, does anybody want to get baptized? And I said, I do. But I didn't mean to say it.
Yeah.
It just came out. I said, I will. That's what I said. I will.
Yeah.
And he goes, go get your shorts on. And they had a horse trough built, tiled around it in the rehab I was in East Texas. It was a Church of Christ. It was the rehab. That was the type of rehab that they based it off of. And I got on the scale that morning and I was 178 pounds, 179. When you first wake up in the morning, you're about as light as you're going to be throughout the day. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm eating a lot now because I'm sober. And I get to the water, and I had no expectation for the first time. I didn't have a crowd in the church. I wasn't doing it for my wife. I wasn't doing it for the men's group. I wasn't doing it for any of the things that I maybe previously had a lot of reason why I was doing it. It was part of it. I just said, hey, I need you, man. I can't do this. But I meant it with everything. And I went in that water and got out. When I came out of the water, the fog that I had been dealing with from being on drugs for so long, I could feel it almost physically leaving my mind.
Come on, Lord. Yeah.
Wow.
And I had to use the restroom because it was freezing in there. So I went to use the restroom. There's a scale right by the bathroom door. And I got on the scale and I was like 176 pounds. I was 4 pounds lighter than I was that morning.
Wow.
And so immediately I felt like the Holy Spirit was like, you left a lot of your baggage in that water because you finally surrendered. You finally put your hands up and you meant it. And you got out of our way, and now you're ready.
Yeah.
And from that day, I've been sober every single day. I have not touched anything. I mean, my mind has came back. My wife.
Yeah.
Come on, man. That's a win.
I mean, it was a complete
huge win.
Oh, it was beautiful. It's been the most beautiful 2 years of my whole life. And I can say that with like full confidence.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a moment in my life that have been free. I've never been free.
Wow.
Yeah. If I could recount back, man, to that, just to give some context, you got the viewers out there. I get a phone call from Kimia, Mike's bride, and she says, "Hey, Mike is in the hospital, and he's not doing too well." And I said, "Where is he?" And he was in Plano. And I said, "You know what? I'm gonna be right over there." And I showed up. And I remember on the way out, I don't even know why, but I grabbed one of our banner shirts actually, and I said, "I'm gonna give it to him." And when I got in there, you weren't wearing a shirt. And I'm like, "Mike, what are you doing?" He said, all he said to me was, "They're after me. They're after me." Now, who's after you? They're out there out the window. They're going to snipe me. They're going to shoot me. I'm like, "Mike, there's no one going to shoot you, bro. You're going to be fine." And before I even got to look at you anymore, you jumped behind the couch. You remember this?
Yeah.
And I pulled you out from behind the couch. I sat you down on the couch with me, and I began to speak life into you, bro.
You did.
Because I seen the guilt and the shame, the abandonment, all the things that you were battling on the inside. And I feel like it's easy to get rid of things that are tangible. It's easy to get rid of the drugs and the alcohol and the partying. But when that spirit of abandonment hits you from the inside, it hits a little different. And I feel like everything that you thought you were able to fix, you can't fix these things.
Mm.
It has to be God.
Has to be.
Yeah.
So when you and I were sitting down for at least 30 minutes looking at each other, your eyes weren't with me a majority of the time, but there were a few times where we locked eyes. You were locked in. I said, "Bro, I believe in you. I'm going to walk with you. Let's do this." And for a real brief couple seconds, you were with me, and then you disappeared again. But I always took that moment and I cherished it. And before I knew it, you were off to rehab. I had no idea where you were. I had no idea what was going on. Your number changed. You remember that? You got a brand new phone.
Yes, sir.
I called Kimia. I got her actually on Facebook and said, "Hey, does Mike have a phone number?" And she said, "He doesn't have a phone number right now, but he's in rehab." "Where is he in rehab?" "I don't know." And somehow about a month later, she called me back. She messaged me back, and we got a hold of your number. And I texted you, actually, and I called you.
Yeah, you did.
And you picked up, and you're on a big tractor. Remember this?
I do.
And it was so
I do.
happy for me to hear. But in the midst of that rehab moment, I said, "Lord, do as you will with him." Mm-hmm. And I want to ask a question. The time you went to rehab, you came from that I'm going to call a loony hospital at this moment.
Sure.
Went from that hospital to rehab. I know it hasn't been easy. I know it's been difficult. I know it's been very, very challenging. But you knew you had to break some generational curses.
Absolutely.
Was there a season, maybe a moment in your life where you felt like, man, the stuff that has happened to me in my past could be too strong, and I want to change. I want to be transformed, and I want to be a different person, but this is holding on to me.
Yeah.
Has there been that moment? How did you deal with that for those
Absolutely.
who are listening out there?
I believe that's my biggest strength is realizing that, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
It's too big for me. I can't. Like alone, I can't go at this. And one of the things that, and just being completely gut level honest, when I went to rehab, I went with an ex.
Yeah.
As I'm still married, going through a divorce, I go to rehab, committing to go live with another woman.
Yeah.
My mind was not there.
Yeah.
My decision making was horrible. For whatever reason, God put her in my life to help me get there. Right. I look at it like He works all things for your good. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was all of it was too big. All of it. The divorce was too big. The sobriety was too big for me alone. And I think it was in that moment when I was, I had spoke with you out there. It was actually our conversation that you said, you're not doing the right thing, being out there with that woman, whichever way you're doing it. That was the last thing that God was really ruffling my spirit about. Is, you're not divorced, and I hate divorce.
Yeah.
So figure it out. Yes, you've committed that you're going to do things different, but you have a covenant.
Yeah.
And you don't get to just put it on the shelf, no matter what you're going through, no matter what your choices are. So that was like that one piece that wasn't there. And it was actually not long after that I was going to the courthouse to make a signature of peace. That's all it was. Yeah. One signature of peace. And I think that's when God wrecked me in that courthouse.
Yeah.
And that was way too big for me because my whole mindset was, I'm done. And God kind of laughed and said, no, I say when you're done.
Yeah.
I say when you're done.
We love Kimia, your lovely wife. How has she, because we just talked about this, the last 2 years, you said it's been different than it's ever been before.
Oh, yeah.
How instrumental has she been through this whole process?
Ooh.
And everything she's been,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember we were in Bible studies together.
Yeah.
When you were away at rehab, and she would come every single week and just be, it wasn't easy for her. I'm not saying it was easy. She was, there's times when she's like, I need prayer, I need support, but how has she been just the rock for you?
That's Miss Grit right there. That woman has a resolve and a trust and a faith in the Lord. She's been pivotal in my success. Yeah. And it's been rough for her. And I had it rough, but mine was more self-inflicted. She was just in love with a man that she saw way more than he saw in himself. And she didn't give up. So it took a big toll on her. But she has been, when they say second to God, I get it. When it says put your wife second to God, there will be nobody that will be there for you like that. There's not a mom and dad, I believe. And my family was there for me in a lot of ways they probably shouldn't have. And I used to think that was key. But Kimia has, man, in this past 2 years, I've watched things change in her that I thought never would because I started changing things in me. So when they say, hey, you're the priest of your home, you take the lead. When you start making changes as a husband, there is a submittance, and they start taking a look at themselves. That's probably blown my mind more than her sticking there for me because I've seen that for 14 years with her. She'll stick with me. Yeah. Took advantage of it, did not appreciate it, was not grateful for it like I should have been. But she had a different lens than I did. Yeah. But to see her then look inward as I started making my changes and start changing the things that, that she was very proud of, that she was like that. I'm very strong because of this. She started to soften, and it's been, man, it hasn't been easy. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. This
has not been an easy journey. I don't want anybody to think it's been a cakewalk, but it's every second has been worth it. Yeah.
Bro, that is so powerful, man. And I tell you, there's been a major shift, I would say, in the way you guys interact.
Yeah.
I remember you before, and then going to rehab and going through that whole thing, and then where we're at right now. Like you said, it's not easy. And I don't want anybody out there to think that life is easy because it's very, very difficult. But
it is.
What role did community play in your life during this season where it was a struggle of back and forth of half, you said earlier, half foot in, half foot out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out per se. How has that really helped you
Oh man.
in your walk with the Lord?
So I've never allowed, I might have had opportunities in the past for men to be in my life. Surely never had a man dig his heels in as hard as you did and say, look, we're going to go through it together. Ugly, dirty, nice, sweet, however we want to take it, we're going to ride this out together. I've never had anybody been in my life for the positive like that. So I commend you and I love you, man.
Love you, bro.
There's nobody in my life that has said, hey, aside from Kimia, that says, hey, all the ugly, I don't care. I'm going to walk it out with you.
Yeah.
The community piece is, man, that's third for me. God, my wife, and brothers and sisters who can say, because I never had judgment when I came back. And I don't know what it's like to be a woman, but I can tell that there's some wives that probably were like, girl, you're crazy. This man did all that and you welcomed him back. But by her leading that grace, I feel like everybody has been the same, at least in you guys and, our tribe.
Yeah.
Just welcome, open arms. Like, hey, I might get a little, well, you lost your mind. We're not doing that again. Or, well, you were acting stupid, but never didn't feel any condemnation. So that to come back to that and not have to earn that grace and love back was like just a spitting image of Christ, but in human form. So for me, that has made me feel so much more grounded and positive in the tribe that we're in. You know what I mean? I mean, we've kind of had some a journey with the house we've been in and consistent.
Yeah.
This tribe has been consistent with us. And that's key. I think it's key. You got to have people around you.
For sure.
That will not only tell you, hey, no, don't do that, but also say, hey, we love you if you do.
Yeah.
Like, don't do it again. We love you. Let's talk about it before you do it next time. But, you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome here. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who can speak truth. What does redemption mean to you personally today?
Everything.
And
I'm watching it.
How can you give people hope in that? Just from your life experiences, there's going to be people out there who may have a very similar story, maybe even more worse,
Sure.
But how can you explain what redemption means? Because like you've said, you've known God,
right?
But you've got to really know His heart.
Yes.
And I feel like you don't really know that you're redeemed or redemption until you really know the love of God.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so how can you give somebody hope today who may be watching?
So there's really four things that I focus on that led me there. It's identity, surrender, time, and time kind of goes spending time with Him, really knowing Him, spending that quality time with God. So when I started to figure out the identity in Christ, my identity in Christ,
your purpose,
you really start to understand His heart, because now you're synced with Him. You have to surrender to everything, right? You figure out whose you are, then you surrender the world, you spend time with Him, and it's like the revelation comes. So redemption for me is lifetime. It's in the life. It's any moment that I'm driving and breathing and walking, I'm like, that gratitude piece is there. This is redemption. I'm walking. Every breath I take is redemption.
Yeah.
Because by all means, the enemy had me.
You shouldn't be here.
Shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be here. So when I put those, really three, is the identity, the surrender, and spending time with Him, you'll know the redemption because you know His story.
Yeah.
And if you look, it's we're all one. It's crazy. Yeah. So that's for me, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
This reminds me of a really cool story in the Word, in the Gospels, of the prodigal son, and seeing a man, walk away from what he had, realizing what he was missing out on, and then making a trip back.
Yes.
So we're just saying, man, we're so happy, bro. So glad and just so blessed, really, to be with you, to be doing life with you. I'm going to hit on one more thing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we've heard the story from childhood through the junior high school, through the adult life, the young adult life, and then going to adult and then married life, right? Somewhere in the sequence of that life, that lifestyle, even right now, being redeemed by the Lord, right? Knowing your identity, knowing your purpose, knowing your mission, we still have to deal with forgiveness.
Yeah.
Because the things that we experience in life, including myself, again, it's easy to forget about these things until it really haunts you. And I know we've had a few conversations about that in terms of like, what does it look like to forgive somebody that's really hurt you, to forgive someone that abandoned you, to forgive someone that really just did so much wrong to you? What does that look like in your world today? Now, before you answer, I know it's a process.
Sure. Absolutely.
I know it's not going to be a snap your finger and here we are. I forgive you 100%. How do you deal with that nowadays, going back childhood with mom and dad and everything else?
So I feel like I had a cheat code, because when I got as low as I got this last time, when I went into the courthouse and we decided not to sign, everything in my whole life melted off me in that moment. Like, I've never understood when people say I was delivered. I'm like, I wish set free. And but I would choose to go back. Like, yeah, I know he'll do it. But in that moment, I can't muster up a negative emotion about my mom, about the lady who molested me. I can't. I've tried to sit there and be like, is something off? I don't feel it. I don't feel any negative emotion towards that. And I think when you truly surrender to God, I don't think I surrendered to all those things, all that hurt.
Yeah.
I think when I gave it to him, he's like, that's how it's intended. That's why I got on that cross.
Yeah, come on.
And the reason I died was so you don't have to figure that out. You just have to let it go. So when I let it go, everything, including, I don't even want to be here. I just want to be with you. He's like, okay, now that's where I want you to be. I want you to be so dependent on me for it. He took mine. So how I keep that up is I've accepted who my parents were when they were doing the things they were doing. I talk to my mom almost every day. You know, the woman who left, the woman who, a lot of people, well, that's the woman who hurt you. Yes, she did. I've heard a lot of people who've shown me a lot of love and grace. And if I'm going to imitate him and I'm going to try to be just like him, I can't have that unforgiveness.
Yeah.
You can't have it, right? So I want to be more like him than I do want to hold on to that unforgiveness.
Come on, that's a word.
And that keeps me, that's the oil to my motor.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? You're a human.
Yeah.
I did some things that were horrible, just like you. And he died for both of us.
I love that you said you felt that in that moment at the courthouse, though.
Everything melted.
And how marriage and forgiveness and mercy and grace, literally, it like embodied everything up.
Yeah.
And that's when you said everything just let go.
And it was in that moment.
It just got released. You got free.
Yeah, for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
And even when I got baptized, I believe a lot of it fell off. But I still had a part in that. Hey, I took it. Now I need you to make some changes. Keep focusing on me so you can work through. And that was the last thing that I felt like was holding me back was I'm fixing to get divorced. He doesn't say he hates a lot of things in the Bible, but that is one thing I hate divorce, right? So when it came down to that moment, and it wasn't just I went in there and was like, oh, I don't want to she looked me dead in my eye and said, I don't want to get divorced. And I said, well, we've already come this far. She walked off, I sat down, and God wrecked me.
Come on.
Wow.
And it was like that last piece of covenant.
Yeah.
And I to me, he was showing me what our covenant is. I don't give up on you in our covenant.
Yeah.
It's a three-way covenant you have with your wife. You're giving up on her. This is a form of giving up on me.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how it registered, but it hit my spirit. Yeah. And I wept like a baby on a bench for 3 hours with her. And we're married today.
So beautiful. Isn't it
Redeemed.
so hard to forgive people? But when you realize how much God's forgiven you, the hope is that it'd be a lot easier.
Sure. I couldn't do it on my own.
But it's not. It literally takes God to love God and to know God's plans for you. So, man, if there's one message you could tell everyone watching this, listening to it, what would be that one thing in regards to all the things that we have talked about, from the hurts, the pains, the redemption, what God is currently doing? What would that one message be?
Yeah, I got to go back to identity. Find your identity in Christ. Don't find your identity in anything else. Find it in Christ and surrender. Surrender to him. Allow him to work. It'll bypass generations of curses. It will completely, radically alter your life if you just let go and really discover whose you are. I think that right there is, the rest is, daily maintenance.
Yeah.
Find you a good tribe. Get around good people.
Come on, man.
Because they will empower you more than they will. Energy producers, right? Energy producers and energy demanders. You get around good people who breathe life into you, good things are going to happen. You'll be filled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
We are so grateful that you came to share your story, and we know it's going to impact so many people around.
I'm honored. Thank you.
And we just want to remind you to go ahead and leave a review. Make sure you follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and share this podcast with someone you might feel like could really use it to encourage them in their life as well.
Yeah. We're so grateful, and we will see y'all next time on Speak Live Podcast.